What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Horrorheads podcast. I am Rich Mallery here with my co-host Jerry Lourenco.
Yo, what the fuck is up?
All right,
It's coming hot today.
Wow.
Yo, I don't know, man. I'm on fire today. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, usually record on a Tuesday, but today is a Monday, which would explain the fire, I guess. I don't know, but either way, yeah, this is episode 6. We're back at it again. Today, we're actually going to talk about some zombie movies, and the reason why we're going to do that is because it is the 45th anniversary of Dawn of the Dead. So we're going to talk about the Romero original zombie trilogy. And another reason was Jerry was supposed to go see Dawn of the Dead in the theaters a week ago, but he got sick and wasn't able to make it. So
Yeah, I'm just blaming that on the last episode and Anthony because I think I'm still recovering today.
yeah, we got really, if anyone didn't hear that last episode, we got a little too fucked up. It was all good fun though. I don't know if we're gonna get that hammered tonight since it is a Monday, although I'll be honest, I really feel like drinking, so I wanna get started right now. So let me know what you got.
All right, well, since Kentucky Derby is coming up, I got the Woodford Reserve Kentucky Derby blend there. This is actually 149, so that would be last year's Kentucky Derby.
How does the Kentucky Derby compare to their normal? Is it like a different blend, or like what do they do that's different?
It's something special they make just for the Derby Day. I think it mixes really well with mint julep.
I haven't had a mint julep in a long time.
Well, they are delicious.
Nice. What's in a mint julep? I actually forget.
I think it's mint. And
Okay.
I think there's actually some bitters in there as well. And that's about all I remember. I haven't had one in probably 2 years.
Okay, so mint, bitters, and bourbon, and I'm sure there's something else maybe, but who knows? Cool. All right, well, I am drinking tonight Whistle Pig Piggyback Small Batch 100 Proof Whiskey. And as you can see, by the way, this bottle is almost empty. I have really enjoyed this bourbon. I was going to save it and crack it open for this episode, but fucking shit happens.
It didn't happen.
So I'm going to pour this now.
All right.
See where we go. It's a nice heavy pour because I only have so much ice. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love this bourbon.
Yeah, you're feeling it. Tell me a bit about it, because I know you've been talking about it the last few days. So let's hear it.
I'm trying to just think of how to describe it. It reminds me of the Four Roses small batch a bit. I don't know why, but it does. Although it has, again, it's got that 100 proof, so there's definitely a kick, but it's a really smooth, sweet, just pleasant bourbon. I don't know if I've ever bought a bottle of Whistle Pig. I've had it like once or twice, maybe more than that at a bar, but I've never actually bought it for home. And I'm glad I did. I'm gonna start drinking this because this is really good. Oh, aged 6 years.
Totally understand why you're getting that Four Roses connection. That is a very, very high proof as well, probably very close to that one. And for me, that Four Roses has a lot of that upfront heat. So I don't know if that's what you're getting from that Whistle Pig.
Yeah, it hits right away. And just interesting fact, do you know why they call it proof?
No, I don't.
So the British Royal Navy, I believe in the 1800s, they used to soak gunpowder in rum, and if the gunpowder lit on fire, it was proof that the rum was strong enough.
That's disgusting, but I'm glad I know that.
I don't know if they drank. I don't know if they drank the gunpowder, but they were just kind of like,
what? They just threw it out. Someone drank it. They gave
I don't know. I don't know what they did, but
they gave it to the guy they don't like.
I mean, think about it this way: you're on a boat with a bunch of dudes for months at a time. Like you're gonna do some crazy shit. And then I read also that after that, the British would tax alcohol differently if it was over 100 proof. So that was like the measure. It was like a different price.
It was like almost like a legal thing. Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Well, this Woodford is only 90 proof, so I will be paying regular taxes on this. The Derby Day is really interesting. I know they released one this year for the 150th Derby Day, which was probably going for $200-300. So I didn't buy that one. So I bought this one for a much more affordable price. And honestly, it's really, really good. It has a nice, like, I would say a silky kind of smooth taste, a little bit of an orange blend with caramel. So it's really nice. Yeah, it's a really nice blend, I think.
Probably goes well with an old fashioned then. I would think.
Oh yeah, excellent and old fashioned. Although I do lately I have been preferring like craft bourbons for my old fashions. I like that mix of that taste. I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm at a bar or something.
And what kind of bitters do you use when you're doing old fashioned?
I use the standard bitters that was it
Yeah,
Angostos,
I don't know how
whatever
to
that
pronounce it,
is.
but yeah.
Yeah, I use that, but I also use a couple drops of the Woodford bitters. It's actually orange flavored, so I add a lot of that orange taste to my old fashioned. So I would say I probably over pour on the bitters. It's my favorite part of the old fashioned, like it's like drinking a Christmas tree. I love it.
I agree. I use bitters in a lot of cocktails, and I do have the orange bitters too that I'll use for old fashions. But yeah, I love bitters. There's something about it.
What is another bitters besides orange and the
Oh, I have
regular?
tons. I have like a fennel bitters that's really good. I have a lavender that I use for old fashions sometimes. Yeah, I got a ton of them at this distillery like a while back. I have an apple one, which I don't like as much. Yeah, they're all kinds. I've been at bars where they've had like walnut bitters, which are interesting. Yeah, you name it, they probably make a flavor. So, did you end up watching Late Night with the Devil the other night? I know you were going to watch it on Friday.
I did.
Okay, give me your thoughts now that we've both seen it, and it's still kind of trending. So, yeah, what'd you think of it?
So yeah, I did watch it, and I have a pretty nice setup at home, so I kind of feel like maybe I was in the theater. I set up the surround sound. I popped my own popcorn. I had Twizzlers. I had this whole setup where I want to get like those fast food containers for like soda drinks and stuff like that. So I kind of made it like a movie experience. It was cool in the beginning. I say I liked it. I really liked the way it looked. I liked the cinematography. I really liked the storyline. It definitely was a bit creepy with a nice nod to like The Exorcist. It felt like some like midnight late TV show for sure, 100%. But after that, really, I mean, it didn't really do it for me. It kind of fell flat after that. I just don't think enough happens in the film to really keep me locked in. Believe me, the whole time I was waiting, I'm like, man, this is gonna get crazy. I don't know what's gonna happen right now. And it didn't really get to that level. Yeah, it got a little bit, but just it felt like it was just like building and there was like that tension. And I felt like every like time they were going to break, it felt like they were like ratcheting that screw down, turning up that tension. And I don't think it broke the way it should have. You know, I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I was hoping for me, I was hoping it was going to be like a new 4.5 star bloody knife movie for me, but it was more like a 3. So it was definitely something I think I need to watch one or two more times before I'm like make a permanent decision about it, because sometimes maybe my expectations are just a little bit too high and there's so much hype going on about this film that maybe I let that get to me a little bit. So I'm going to reserve my full opinion and just keep it as it was a good movie. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there completely. I feel like it did a really good job of again continuing to build the tension, and I was very invested and couldn't wait to see what happened. And then it kind of just the payoff wasn't there for me at all. And I think I said this last episode, maybe the last 10 minutes of it, just fell apart.
Mm.
I left.
Oh,
I remember thinking like through the movie, like this is so good, this is amazing. I can't wait to tell people about it. And then being like, man, that was disappointing. Like I will maybe never watch this again. And I'm sure I will watch it again, but I do feel that I agree with you there that it was a missed opportunity.
that's not weird to me at all, because I'm going to say there's probably like 5 movies in my current rotation right now where I only watch like the first hour or hour and 10 minutes of it. And then I just turn it off the last like 15, 20 minutes. And the funny thing is I don't think they're bad movies. I think they're very good movies, but the payoff again, it's not there, and that's not what I'm taking away from the film. It's the rest of it, and I think this is kind of like where this film is going to live for me. It's going to be everything else but that ending, because I liked it. It was a great mood. I mean, it just had a great feeling to it. Can't really describe it. I can't think of anything else I've seen in a long time that looked like that or felt like that. So great concept. But I mean, you had so much there. You have like a devil and you have like all this supernatural stuff going on. You could have smashed it at the end, and they didn't.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And yeah, maybe when I do watch it again, like just knowing that I already know the ending, like I could turn it off whenever I want and just maybe I'll just watch it just for the entertainment value. Because yeah, it is very different. I can't think of another movie that I would compare it to. Again, I did see it in the theater, so I had that experience was really awesome just because it really did feel like you were in that audience, which I thought was a really cool effect that I can't remember the last time I felt. I actually went to the movies on Sunday. I saw, it wasn't a horror movie. I saw this French art house movie called The Beast, which
Mm,
was absolutely incredible. Again, you have to be really into like an art house movie that's another other language to really get into it, but it was really well done, really beautiful. The plot of it was it takes place over three different timelines, and it's like 2045, the year 2045. Sorry, AI has kind of replaced everything. So in order to get like a high level job, you need to be completely void of emotion and just kind of very neutral, or they won't hire you
mm,
because even if you're smart and skilled, there's a computer that could do your job more. So you kind of are competing with that. So this woman kind of undergoes this purification ritual to void herself of emotions and things like that. And as she does, she relives her past lives and remembers this other man that she was super connected to but couldn't really be with for various reasons. And the movie takes place over three timelines. They're different people in each timeline, but they're the same. One is like early 1900s Paris, one is 2014 Los Angeles, and the other one is 2045. I forget where. But it was really different, really awesome. Again, if you want to see something completely different, and it got into like a thriller at some point. The last act is pretty kind of scary and creepy for various reasons. So it's 2.5 hours though, so it's a commitment, but I really enjoyed it.
yeah, I love a good Parisian film. Is this a theatrical release, or is it streaming
Yeah,
anywhere?
yeah. No, I
Or
saw it at a theater that there's a theater by me that just plays independent and
mm.
foreign movies, and I mean I don't know how they stay in business. They must get government grants or something, but they were playing this, and yeah, it was I was really like surprised. It was really good.
Yeah.
So switching gears, we're going to talk about something completely different. We're not going to talk about French art house movies. We
We're
are going
not.
to talk.
Oh
No,
shit!
I mean we could. Should we talk about Gasper No or
I
something like
love
that?
Gasper. No, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So anyway, so we're going to talk about zombie films. So before we get into the three that we're going to talk
Mm,
about, we're going to talk about Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Night of the Living Dead.
okay.
So I'm going to hit you with a question. So what is your favorite zombie movie, or maybe top three zombie movies that you?
I'm gonna be completely cliche here. I'm pretty sure my favorite zombie film is Dawn of the Dead.
Wow.
That is really why I was hoping to catch it in the theater. I think it just really set the tone for what a zombie film should be. I like that. I like The Horde, which is a French
Yes.
film. I mean that one is super super fun, and I mean nonstop action, nonstop fights, and nonstop gunplay. I mean it's a crazy movie. I would say that is definitely one of my favorites. And let's see. Oh, I mean, I'm into was it Scout's Guide?
Oh yeah, that's no,
I
that's
mean,
funny. I like that movie.
I mean, it's a horror comedy, but that doesn't mean it's not a good zombie film. I think it's hysterical, plays off all the standard movie tropes, but it has great characters. It'll definitely make you laugh out loud. There's a lot of over the top things, and I'm not going to gross out our listeners here, but there's a lot of humor that you and I particularly like, that we find funny, that we talk about amongst ourselves, not in public. So I find that film a lot of fun to watch. I try to watch it at least once a year.
I forgot about that film, and now that reminded me, I didn't think I was gonna like that movie because the premise just sounded really dumb, but I did really like it. I would say for me, if I had to pick my top three, The Horde definitely up there,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's got a lot of action. It kind of makes me think of like John Wick mixed with zombies, something like that. Yeah, I would say I'm a big fan of Shaun of the Dead if we want to talk about zombie comedies, and I think my favorite though zombie movie is 28 Days Later.
Oh wow. Oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. We saw that in the theater, didn't we?
We did, yeah, and we went to see that in the theater. And what I really liked about that was it was a completely different take on the zombie that you had not seen before. I think that was the first time you saw fast moving zombies, or at least the first time I saw it. And the movie kind of it feels like multiple movies, right? Because you have the survival aspect of it where these people are just trying to survive the zombies. And then you have the human aspect towards the in the last act when they end up with the military people, which is equally horrifying. Like what's scarier, the zombies or like a group of people like that? So I felt like it did a great job of just again like once the people are safe, they're like not safe for long, and it was just nonstop intense stuff. So I would say that is definitely my favorite. And to be fully transparent, I'm not a huge fan of zombie movies. I think I used to be a lot more, but I think at this point I've just seen so many of them and I have a hard time getting into them. Like it's never my go-to. I never or rarely will say I'm going to put on a zombie movie. And that doesn't mean that if I'm watching one I'm not into it. I just if there's a new zombie movie, I might not watch it or it just doesn't hit for me anymore. And I don't know if it's again things like The Walking Dead that just kind of made it so commonplace or what, but yeah, something about the zombie movie does not appeal to me as much as it used to.
It's limited, I would say, absolutely, as far as storylines. There's only so much you could do with it, and I did love 28 Days. I'm not going to change my top, but I'm going to add that to number 4 because I do think it was a great film, and I do remember seeing it at that time, and it was like I remember we just looked at each other. It was just like, holy shit, are you looking at this? Like you always thought in your head, like every single trope, like, you know what, man, if there's some zombies out there, I'm just gonna push one down and I'm gonna run and I'm gonna climb up this ladder and I'm gonna be okay. And that like movie just totally flipped everything on end. You're like, I don't think there is a safe place to hide from, this horde. So it was terrifying and that made it scary, really scary, because like you always thought, well, I could just hide or I could get away, I could outrun them, but you could barely outrun them in a car. So it was because they don't get tired, they're a zombie, they're not going to lose their breath and stop chasing. They're just gonna, it's gonna be relentless, and that is terrifying. So yeah, I like that one. I'm gonna add that one, and you know what, I think I'm gonna watch that this week. You just reminded me. I think I'm gonna add that to my list.
Yeah, and I think they're making a new one, which would be the third one in that I guess I don't know what I call it franchise, but I believe they are making another film. Yeah, the thing about if you look at like the Romero zombie movies or many of the other ones, the big thing is that they just overwhelm you with numbers. And like they're slow and sometimes they're weak and sluggish, and you can kind of like fight one or two of them, but they just keep coming at you. And then before you know it, there's like 40 around you and there's not much you can do. But yeah, 28 days later, they're coming at you full speed, they're highly aggressive. Like there's nothing you could like one of them can take you out versus again like a Romero movie that there's like 40 of them. But like, and can you only imagine what would happen if there's again 30 of these fast moving zombies infected with this rage virus that are just going to come tear you apart? Like, there's
Well,
really
well,
not
I
much
know
you
what's
can
gonna
do.
happen. I'm just gonna become a zombie. I'm not gonna fight it. Like I want to be that. I'm not gonna sit there and try to like fight. I want to be the guy chasing. So yeah, I'll just get like I'll put my arm out and like go for it, dude.
Yeah, because at some point they're going to get you. Like, it's only a matter of time. You could survive to a point, but at some point, like, where are you going to go, right? Unless you end up on like an island and clear the island completely and hope they don't swim, right? That's it, or a boat just at land or something like that. But that's the only really thing you could do.
I don't see why they couldn't swim. They could walk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
In the Fulci zombie, they do walk under, I believe they walk underwater or they swim or something, because I remember there's a scene where the zombie fights a shark at some point, which is ridiculous.
it's like underneath like the Brooklyn Bridge or something like that, and
Absolutely ridiculous, but like at least yeah, you're not even safe on an island because they will come to you somehow.
damn, man, forget it. I don't even want to talk about these zombies. I'm too freaked out right now, dude. What am I gonna do? I'm old now. I can't do shit.
Just drink. That's what I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's it, man.
do.
That's all I could do. That's my only defense. I'd be like, hey, dude, you want to sip?
Yeah, I think if I get my like blood alcohol content high enough, maybe I won't be like appetizing to the zombies and they'll just like move on.
You won't smell like a human anymore. They'll just think like you're some sort of like brewery or a bottle or something like that. So yeah, that's a good defense. I
That's
like
my
that.
plan. So I'm gonna drink this whistle pig and then maybe drink something else. All right, so let's take it back. Before we get into the Romero movies, so I did watch a new zombie movie, trying to get into the headspace of this. So I watched the Soska sisters' new movie, Festival of the Living Dead, which is I believe it follows I believe the granddaughter of Ben who died in Night of the Living Dead. I might be wrong on this, but it follows some descendant of him. And what happens is this group of, I guess, teens decide to go to like a rave, it's basically like a festival commemorating what happened in 1968, Night of the Living Dead, and it was commemorating the survivors, but they turned it into like this rave, and they do a bunch of drugs, and they're driving and just being teenagers, and they hit a person who actually is a zombie, but they think it's just a person. They swerve off the road. Two of the people get injured, and then three of them go to the festival to find help. But meanwhile, what happened was,
Oh yeah, they went to the festival to get help.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
exactly, and
Yeah, and
that's what I'm gonna
party.
get to. That's what I'm gonna get to is why this was like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And apparently, like, there's at the site of this festival, there's, I guess, residue from a meteor that landed. I guess they're saying the meteor made the zombies, and people are snorting the dust, and they turn into zombies and things like that. So this was really one of the it was this movie was horrible. Like, it was terrible. Not only was it was very Gen Z, which I have a problem with, like movies that are like that, but it was just dumb. Like, so these people go to this festival to find help. They see nobody there. Like, they see one woman all kind of crazy. People are a little weird. What they do is they call the police and say, "Oh, our friend's hurt on the road." And then instead of like going back to the car to wait on them, now knowing that they ran over somebody, they just said, you know what? Like, let's just do mushrooms and like go to the concert.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's what I would do. I mean, like, I think we have done shit like that before. We're just under the guise of, we're just gonna look for some help, guys. And it's like, yo, let's get some beers, dude.
Yeah. No, it's just stupid though, because it's like one minute they're really freaking out, like, oh my God, the cops are gonna know that we ran over somebody, like we're all high, blah, blah, blah. And then like next minute they're like, yeah,
Okay.
let's just do shrooms and go to the concert and forget about our friends that are like horribly injured. It was just so stupid, and like there was so much bad dialogue. And again, it's like that Gen Z dialogue. Like, there was one scene where they're like trying to flee the zombies, and the one of the bands that they liked was zombies and was chasing them. And the guy's like, "This is so Shakespearean," and like one of the other characters says, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Getting killed by your own band, by your favorite band, is such a Shakespearean thing." And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, who talks like that?
What Shakespeare work was
And
that? Just
then
out
when
of curiosity.
yeah, and then when the zombies get close, he's like, "Fuck Shakespeare." It's like so stupid. Like, it was just everything about it was poorly written. It felt like it was made for Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know. And this is the third movie I've seen of the Soska twins. The other two being American Mary and Rabid. And I didn't like those movies. A lot of people do like those movies. I didn't like those movies, but I was like, okay, they're movies. This was just trash. Like, I don't know who the audience was for the. Again, I'm sure it was like 13-year-olds maybe. I don't know, but it was really bad. I watched it on Tubi, so
So it was really bad, but if they ever show up on our podcast, it was okay.
I mean, they were the best filmmakers ever.
Yeah, they had that game show that I used to love.
Oh yeah,
back in
that
the
game show was
day.
good.
I don't know what it was. Oh, hell, oh my God, that was such a, like, what happened to that? That was amazing. Like,
Yeah, that was great.
That was entertainment right there. I loved it, and they were so evil and twisted in that. They really screwed with people. So I really like that. But for me, no, I wasn't a huge fan of many of their films.
Yeah, I would watch Elevator now if it was on, if I could find it somewhere, because that was really good. But yeah, this was really bad, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I just don't get like what the point of it was. But anyway, shifting gears to the classic zombie movie. So I'm going to take things back a little bit for those of you who don't know us very well. And I would say when we were like 19 years old, give or take, we used to get together once a week. I think it was usually on like a Wednesday night, and we would watch three different horror movies. And I worked at a gas station at the time, so I worked till midnight. And one of us during the day would go to the video store when those existed, pick out three random horror movies, and I would come to your house at 12:15, 12:30, and we would stay up basically till 6 in the morning watching horror movies. And that's what we decided to come up with. And we were watching so many different movies and forgetting them. That's when we decided to come up with our Horror Heads website, just so we could remember the things we saw and like what we liked. But yeah, I remember that. And we would eat like Doritos and we would drink this drink, and it was literally lemon juice and sugar.
Sugar. This kept you up though. We were kids, guys. We were sober back then. So, it's what we were working. Like, I mean, we were just downing like Mountain Dew, this horrible drink. Like, we didn't have like money either. So the only thing we could do is we had this shitty lemon juice, because I don't know why my parents always had it. I don't know why. They always had like a gallon of it. And they was probably wondering like why they were going through like so much of it. And yeah, we were just making this shitty drink and watching these films. And yeah, man, you really brought me back to a different time. And we were watching on like VHS cassettes, so we needed like a VCR, and it was a lot of fun. And actually, I have a a pretty funny story of how I actually got this tape for Night of the Living Dead. So I didn't pay for it.
What?
Are you interested in hearing
I
this?
I am interested in hearing about it.
All right. So as you know, I did work in a big box store when I was a young teen, and I was a pretty decent, worker, and I was
Bullshit.
in the yeah, I was pretty good, man. I spent a lot of times probably like, try talking to the girls and stuff like that, but I definitely worked. And I worked in the toy department. It would really die down like, outside the holidays. So they wanted to like move me to a little more higher profile area of the store. So they're like, "Hey, we're gonna put you in electronics," right? So you know how these places are. There's like absolutely no training, and they just put me in there. But I knew how to like clean up and stuff like that, so it was okay. But in the back, they had like all these TVs, and they'd have one VCR that like operate all these TVs. And what they told me was, if a movie packaging is open and it's in the back, you could use that movie to put on the TVs. So I'm in there my first night, and freaking Jumanji is on, and it probably flipped like 2 3 times that I'm working there, and I'm like, oh my god, this movie sucks. I'm like, so why don't I just go and see like what's back there? I'll put something else on. I swear to god to you, Night of Living Dead was opened up right next to the VCR. I'm like, why don't I just put this on? Doesn't show anything. I'm like, I don't even think it's rated R. So I'm like, why don't I just put it on? This is like my 17-year-old mind, thinking. So I put it on. And I'd say like within like it's kind of loud, so you can kind of hear what's going on. So I think within like 10, 15 minutes, like the manager came over. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, I put this movie on, man. I'm like, it was in the back. And he's like, no, you can't put stuff like this on the TV. So I was like, all right. So he made me put back on Jumanji, right? So I was like, whatever. And so now I'm just cleaning up in the side room, and there's the radios there, right? So I think I probably put on like Coal Chamber or something like that as I was like cleaning up in that aisle. And again, the guy comes over, he's like, you can't put this music on. I'm like, you guys are not giving me any training, right? Long story short, I come into work the next day, and I go to report to the electronics department, and the manager comes over, he's like, Jerry, he's like, we're gonna put you in housewares.
Oh.
And I was like, what? I'm like, what's wrong? I'm like, like I could do this. He's like, nah, man. He's like, but it's all good. He's like, look, and you could keep this tape too because it's open and we can't use it anyway. So they gave me the tape as a consolation gift for kicking me out of electronics and making me work in boring ass housewares. And that's how I obtained this tape that I probably had for probably 15 years until I moved maybe the second or third time. I still had it, but I love that tape.
In Army of Darkness, wasn't Ash working in housewares at Save Mart? I believe he was.
I thought he was in hardware, but it
Oh,
could have been
maybe. I don't know. I
housewares.
forget. But so anyway, so why I bring up our teen years in watching horror movies is that was when I saw Dawn of the Dead for the first time. And I'm sure I'd heard of the movie, knew about the movie, but I'd just never seen it before. And I remember when I saw it for the first time, I remember being so blown away by just the level of just violence and brutality and just the amount of just zombies getting killed, people getting killed. And I remember absolutely loving the movie. Now looking back at it when I rewatched it, I have a much different opinion of it. And I know it's one of your favorites and I want to get into it. I do not like this movie anymore. And I will say one caveat to it is one thing that I did not realize is there may be more, but there are three different versions of Dawn of the Dead. There is the theatrical version that is about 2 hours, which is probably the one we saw. There is the extended version, which is almost 2.5 hours, which is the one that I watched. And then there's Dario Argento apparently did a cut of the movie for the European release that is a little shorter and cuts out a lot of the humor and there's different music he used. So there's some in Dawn of the Dead, there's some music from Goblin. In the Dario Argento cut, apparently it's a lot more of the Goblin soundtrack, and apparently it just feels more violent because they cut out like a lot of the bullshit. So now I watched the extended cut, which I think was a mistake because I was really bored through a lot of it. There's a lot more talking, I believe, in this version, and I probably maybe would have liked it more if it was a lot shorter. I do want to watch the Argento version because I don't think I've ever seen that. But anyway, so like let's talk Let's talk Dawn, and I'll tell you what I.
Oh, so you want to start out of order here, huh?
Yeah, let's start with Dawn. Let's start with Dawn, and we'll kind of go through them in whatever order I feel like.
Okay, throw me off my game here, dude. I came in hot now. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man.
That's what I
Like
do, man. So I'll tell you what I didn't like about it on the rewatch. And I haven't seen this movie in a long time. But I remember again, I was like always remember really liking it, and now I'm like, oh, I really don't like it. What I didn't like, number one, is I didn't like the music through most of it. And again, I usually love Goblin soundtracks. I love all the Argento art movies where he uses them. I just didn't feel it just didn't feel like intense in this movie, and a lot of it kind of just felt kind of goofy. And I think a lot of the movie didn't have the sense of urgency for me, where fighting all of these zombies and various things, but it never seemed to me that intense or that frightening where I was like, oh my God, are they going to get out of it? It almost seemed like the characters were kind of goofing around a bit and having more fun. And it just felt very comical, which I actually didn't know was Romero's intent. He wanted this to be very comic book. I never knew that until I was just doing research on this. And that makes sense because it does feel very comic book to me. It doesn't feel, even though there is a lot of violence, there's a lot of headshots and things like that. To me, it just felt almost silly. Whereas if you look at Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Living, I'm sorry, Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, they're both very serious movies in different ways. This one to me, yeah, it felt more comical and just all around just it didn't feel scary to me. And I wasn't worried for the people until kind of I guess towards the very end. But I just felt that they were just kind of like, whatever, we're in this mall, like we're gonna fuck around. Like it didn't seem that they were surviving. They were kind of just having fun. And I didn't like that about it. It just kind of took me out of it. And I think the music contributed to that too. Was it just felt kind of I can't think of how to describe it, but it felt like music you would hear in a mall, basically. It just didn't feel good. And I guess we should tell the plot of Dawn of the Dead for those of you who haven't seen it. So I will give it really quick. And basically, I don't know if it's necessarily supposed to take place after Night of the Living Dead. I'm going to pretend that it does. And basically, it's people are finally realizing that like, oh my God, there's this zombie infestation. Things are getting out of control, but they don't know how out of control it is yet. And there's this TV reporter and her boyfriend's like a helicopter pilot, and he comes to her and is basically like, look, like shit's about to go down, we need to get the hell out of here. So them and two like SWAT team members get in the helicopter and try to leave the city, and I believe they're starting to run out of gas or something like that, and they need some place to post up, so they end up posting up in this mall because they feel like, oh, this will be a good place to kind of just hide out till things calm down because we'll have everything we need there. And they basically just camp out in this mall which is filled with zombies trying to get in. And then later on other people have the same idea and try to kind of come in and take over the space too. But basically the entire movie takes place in this mall, which I think is a really cool concept because I remember even being a kid, yeah, as a kid, I remember thinking like, oh, it'd be cool to be locked in the mall overnight because I could go play with toys, I could eat ice cream, I could do all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I thought it was like that's a good idea, and that's probably like a good place to go would be a mall because again, especially one like this that had a sporting goods store with lots of guns. So I think it would be a good place to kind of post up and wait. Although again, other people will have that same idea, will try to break in. So if it's just the four of you, it's going to be difficult to defend it, especially if you're not preparing like traps and stuff like that. So that's kind of the movie. So tell me, I told you kind of some of the things I didn't like about it. It really was like tone. What did you like? Saying it's like one of your favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just has that ferocious kind of start, you know? It starts like almost like that movie, The Raid, you know, where it's just like this SWAT team basically going through like, this building and really going floor by floor and room by room and really killing anything and anyone that like shows up. At a certain point, people are just like they're losing their shit. They don't even care if they're zombies anymore. They're just like killing every single thing they see. If it moves, it could be a target. And that was freaky, man. What a freaky way to start a movie because when things really get out of control and it's almost like a lawlessness, this is exactly how people would act. Like who's really in charge in a situation like that. So I thought that was pretty crazy. And I mean, I think Tom Savini did a great with those special effects, especially in the beginning. We never really saw like zombies chomping on like humans before in that way. I mean, honestly, my experience up until I saw Dawn of the Dead was probably Night of the Living Dead, and you really don't see like any of the gore or any of the actually zombie attack, and I think that's where this movie like really just kind of like excelled, because you saw like every bite, you saw like the teeth entering, the skin being pulled apart, the blood squirting. I mean, it was gross, it looked like the zombies were like biting into a cake, but it was like a neck, and I thought that was just like ferocious. And of course, I love the mall setting. I thought it was fun. There is a point where they do break the tension, and they go from surviving to thriving, I think, at a certain point. They do have the issue that, Francine is pregnant, so they know that they're on a clock. But I think for like a moment they kind of try to enjoy life a little bit, and just, I mean, I'm assuming just like everyone gets to that point in any pandemic where you just start living life again, and it's an everyday situation. It is no longer scary. The zombies aren't that scary. I mean, honestly, they're with two highly trained SWAT team members. It's not that scary, and they were all practicing, they're all getting their skills up, so I think they were being proactive in trying to protect themselves. But I think it was pretty realistic on really probably how I would be if I was in a similar situation. I'd probably be nervous as hell in the beginning, and then you kind of adapt to it. I think it is a good survival film. There are tons and tons of zombies in this film. Whatever they had in Night of the Living Dead, they like tripled. They tripled the amount of zombies in this one, and I think they even tripled whatever they had in Day of the Dead. And I'm gonna say, I think there was some like a lot of like high tension spots. I think when they were trying to block the entrances, I thought that was like really exciting. I remember kind of being a little bit at the edge of my seat there, where I was like, oh my God, are they gonna pull it off? Are they gonna be able to block these entrances? Are the zombies gonna get them as they try to, switch vehicles and things like that? I thought that was pretty, tension filled. I think there were definitely some goofy things in there. I mean, honestly, I thought the motorcycle gang was absolutely ridiculous,
How about the
and
zombie pie
probably,
fight?
yeah, I mean, it was so stupid. I mean, it was the guy trying to like take his blood pressure, it was just there was a lot of stupid shit. But now that you kind of mentioned that he was trying to like, I guess maybe break some of that tension, I get it. It was stupid, but there were a lot of things I liked. I liked like the cat and mouse kind of games of them trying to like, take all like the back entrances and sneak around the mall and figure out like, how they're going to maneuver and get the supplies they need. I thought that was really interesting. I also thought that eye patch doctor guy that they tuned in to listen to daily. I mean, that felt very very real. That felt like almost like a World Health Organization announcement that we would deal with. Like a Dr. Fauci kind of type that doesn't know shit about what's going on, but yet we're all sitting there listening because we're trying to understand like what's happening, and is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And I mean, that's really what they were doing. So I thought there was a lot of like realism to it. I thought there was a lot of tension. I thought there was a ton of blood, but just a little bit of goofiness. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of things to chime in on a lot of the things you different said. And yeah, one of my notes was a large part of this movie is them just trying to enjoy life, which I get. And maybe in my version there was a lot more of that because I'm not sure what they added and what they cut or whatever. But to me, like that was ended up being kind of boring. Like there's a large stretch of the movie where again, nothing's happening. They're just kind of having fun and having dinner and stuff like, which I get that's what real life would be, but it just wasn't entertaining to me. I did like during some of those scenes, you see the breakdown of the relationship between Francine and I forget her boyfriend's name, but I did like seeing how they kind of grew
Steven.
apart. Steven, as they grew apart. I did like that aspect of it, but to me, it just kind of bored me for a bit. But you're right, that is how you would be at some point, especially in this situation. You've killed all the zombies basically. They're not really even that threatening to you, and you're just going to kind of chill out here. Like you're right, that is reality, but I just didn't find it entertaining. One thing I will say is that, like you said, the beginning, I think the first 15 minutes of the movie are awesome. I think it was super intense, scary, really pulls you into that world as to like what is going on. Like this is chaos. And I felt like it went from chaos to a much more controlled environment, which I would have liked to have seen more of that going on. Speaking about the scenes being intense, I think to me, again, it was just the music and the sound design. Like I even wrote a note on when they're punching the zombies, like the sound effect they used was just like that cheesy, like it was like kung fu movie, like and when they're dodging the zombies, it just didn't feel it. And I think if it would have had maybe a different score or better or modern or just different sound effects, I would have been more into it. But to me, it just seemed like, again, like they were never really in danger, even though I know they were, but I just didn't really feel like anything bad was going to happen to them. It was overly violent. There is a lot of blood. I read that the MPAA originally wanted to give it an X rating for violence. I think they were bigger on ratings for violence back in like the seven. This was 78, I believe. Back then than they are now. Now it's like you could be as violent as you want. It's really about the
Don't show
sex is the
nudity.
yeah, the sex is the problem, but violence is fine. But they wanted to give it an X rating, so it did go out unrated. And the Tom Savini makeup, I mean, it maybe not be his first movie, but it was definitely one of the first big productions he had worked on. And I believe they had wanted him for Night of the Living Dead, but apparently Tom Savini was a war photographer and was in the Vietnam War during that time and could not. And apparently he based a lot of the makeup on things that he might have seen in Vietnam for some of the injuries and violence and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting. And he also did a lot of the stunts. And he wasn't really a stunt man. They just needed someone to do it. And he's like, yeah, sure, I could do that. And got the shit kicked out of him a bunch. So I give him credit for that. One thing I really didn't like about this movie, though, it's the way the zombies looked. And I read a note on this too. So they look very blue to me, which just
Yeah,
looks
they're like
odd.
grayish blue or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently they chose to make them gray because they were kind of trying to be reminiscent of Night of the Living Dead, which was black and white, and didn't realize it was going to come out so blue. So Tom Savini even says like he wish he didn't do that because that takes me completely out of it. I hate it. I
At
hate it.
least I knew there were zombies, though. You know, honestly, if you watch when you watch Night of the Living Dead, it's just like a guy wearing like a untucked shirt, and that was supposed to be the zombie. So there was really no way to, decipher who was a zombie and who wasn't. So actually, I liked the fact that it was like crystal clear, like this guy is a zombie. Again, going back to like Night of the Living Dead, the really only way to know is like really that they're waddling when they walked versus just like walking. And it's like, oh, that's a zombie. Here it's like, oh, gray face. That guy's dead. So, I thought that made it easier. So I didn't really mind that so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you there because to me it just came off cartoony. It just didn't look realistic to me. And I actually enjoy Night of the Living Dead, how they didn't have a ton of zombie makeup. And you really could only tell by their mannerisms because then it made me kind of think like these could be anybody. And if I was in that situation, being able to decipher who's a zombie versus who is not would be challenging. Like again, even at the end, and people have their own interpretations at the very end of Night of the Living Dead. But when they shoot Ben, basically, and I'm spoiler, but if you've been seeing Night of the Living Dead by now, I don't know what to tell you. But when they shoot him, they think he's a zombie because you can't tell them apart. So I actually liked that about Night of the Living Dead, and I believe it was probably more of a budget choice than anything else. But I found that kind of creepy that they could literally be anybody. Like this is just a guy that might have just died. Whereas here again, just that blue color just didn't look real. It just didn't look. It didn't look realistic is the wrong word to use, but yeah, it just threw me off every time I see it. I kind of like would like. It was hard to get used to for me. I just didn't like it.
Decent call out because I mean it wasn't the best makeup that I've ever saw. Like he probably like powdered that like a blue powder. Wasn't that great. I mean it was, but
I mean, I'm sure they spent a few hours to get them that way.
I don't know.
I'm
I
sure.
don't know. I think some people were just just walking by. It's like, wait, yeah, no blue powder, and then they just move them on. I mean, yeah, no, fair play. I would say that's definitely a good call out. How about like, I mean, the impossible odds, and like when the horde got into the mall after the motorcycle gang, came in. Now they're dealing with like the zombies again and a motorcycle gang that was huge. I mean, there had to have been like at least 50, maybe 100 people in that motorcycle gang. I just like, how defeating would that feel? Is that you spent all these, I mean, I guess they're in there for a few weeks. We could assume, right, that they're there
Yeah, hard
for
to tell, right? It might be longer. I don't really know.
a
Yeah.
couple of weeks, let's say 2 months or so. You spent all that time like really kind of making it your own, and then here you go. You're like, oh, the first thing you think is, oh shit, I gotta do this again. And not only that, but now I have to like fight humans. I mean, who are the real monsters, because they both felt very entitled to the mall and the goods that they stole. It was no one's, and just like we've seen in the past, people tend to hoard, supplies, and feel entitled to it. And I mean, that was ultimately this group's demise, because if they had just hidden out, or if they were more tactical, or they just kind of let the zombies play out with the motorcycle gang, they probably would have survived. But they got a little crazy trying to kind of mark their territory and expose them. And I think that's ultimately why they ended up getting killed. Most of them is because of their entitlement.
Yeah, and look, I could see that being completely crushing. Again, like you clear the place, you're trying to enjoy life, and then boom, all of a sudden they're back again, and it seems like there's no hope. Like they're just going to keep coming, and you're just going to have to keep dealing with this. I get that. I think again, my what I just go back to, and I will say again, this movie, 1978, highly influential. There was no movie like this before that, so I'm sure tons of zombie movies will point to this as their influence. So I give it credit for that. But when I look at a movie and say like this is entertaining to me, like this just is not. And I think again, it just comes down to like even when these things are happening, like the motorcycle gang, fighting, the zombies, and then they're trying to snipe them out. It just again, it just didn't feel intense and scary. And a lot of that, again, just the tone of the movie, which was a choice. It was an artistic choice.
I could probably see that it might have had to do with your maybe viewing experience, because you were probably watching it on a super sharp screen, probably had the sound cranked up. I was watching this on my projector. I was using my projector sound. So honestly, like I only heard like the big sounds. I didn't hear like a lot of those nuance kind of sounds. Like it's not, the best sound coming out of a one speaker projector. And I was probably about 10-15 feet away from it. So I was just really hearing like the dialogue and some of the like high points of the music, things like that. The sound effects didn't really play that much of a role, because I probably barely heard them. So yeah, I could see why that might have changed your opinion about it now, using like more modern equipment. I mean, first time we probably watched this was probably on a 19-inch TV and
Yeah.
the middle of the night. And I know we must have rewound that first 10 minutes like probably 5 times, where they're just like bashing all those like zombies and stuff like that, because it was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy at that time, 1978. Like who else did it first? And this is definitely one of those scenarios there. It's like, if you didn't enjoy Night of the Living Dead, because you were like a punk ass kid like me, and it was black and white, and I didn't understand like watching a black and white film, that's something like my mother should be watching, not me, and you didn't appreciate it, this is your movie, because it's like, oh, here it is. Look at this full color. Look at this blood. Look at this gore. Look at the blue face. I don't know. It's like it just felt like it was more, more for me. And that could be playing into like why I might have that like nostalgia feel for this film. Because it made me enjoy not only just zombie films, but horror films. It was probably like one of the first ones I've watched multiple times. And you fall in love with it. Back then we didn't have the selection that say people have now. I couldn't put on like Netflix or Prime and just sort between 500 movies. I had four, and this was one of them. So
Yeah, and there probably weren't a lot of zombie movie choices either, because that was kind of before Walking Dead and zombies really blew up. One thing I will say that you brought up a good point, and that's how you're watching the movie. And you're right. I'm watching this on like a 65-inch like OLED 4K TV. And maybe I need to start for these older movies, at least the ones we're going to talk about for the show, watching them on not as clear and advanced a TV with like surround sound. Like it might play better if I watch it on like an older TV, for example, because then you're not picking up on like things that like didn't look right. Because even when I was watching Evil Dead, like I never noticed this before. Yeah, like the makeup, like you could completely see the people under the makeup in certain parts. And I like if I watched it on again like a more grainier TV or something, I wouldn't have noticed that, and then it would have been scarier. So that's a good point. I'm gonna make it a point to again watch when we do these older movies to watch them on not that really nice TV, something that more fits kind of the original, what we would have seen years ago. That's
Yeah,
a really
and
good point.
I mean, I was taken out of, Evil Dead 2 with the same thing where I'm like, I could tell that that's saran wrap on plastic, and it was, I, I saw the movie, multiple times. Never would have thought that, I obviously knew it was some sort of prosthetic, but I didn't know it. I would be able to see it though, and I
Yeah,
was
no,
like,
you're
yeah,
right.
that's completely fake, and I think that that's the problem is technology. It kind of clears up things that I think directors and filmmakers knew back then that you would never see, like making fun of anyone. But now, like when you see like actors and they have like a lot of like bad skin, and you're like, man, how come I never saw that? It's like the DPI wasn't there, man.
Yeah.
It was just it looked, it was a filter, it's exactly what a filter does in a modern age. We don't want to be so clear. We want to be a little blurry. We want to be a little softened up and a little filtered. And that's what basically the capacity of the technology was back then. It was soft. It wasn't like as hard as it is now, so you can see everything. And probably a lot of things I wish I never saw. I'm like, I didn't know the person looked like that. It's
Yeah.
like I just, I've seen this 1,000 times. I'm like, it shows you things that maybe you don't need to see. And probably again with the sound too, you're not dealing with surround sound. You're dealing with some mono, I think, maybe with this film. I don't even know if it was stereo. I don't remember.
Probably mono,
Um,
I'm sure.
probably
1978.
mono for
Yeah.
78. So it's like now all of a sudden you're listening to it on a high-end system. It's gonna sound cheesy, I bet, So I'm not, listen, I appreciate your opinion totally. I don't know how I would have felt if I watched it differently because I didn't. After watching it, I fell back in love with it. I'm like, I love this film and I know why I like it. I remember that feeling, and I'm surprised that that it didn't land that way for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Again, I think I'm gonna rewatch it probably in like a year or so, and I probably will try to watch it in a different environment. I do want to watch actually the Argento cut. I'm excited to see that, just to see like again if it's a tighter cut with different music that might kind of put it over the edge for me. One thing I thought was really interesting is so the Fulci movie Zombie. I always saw it called Zombie 2 on like VHS covers, and I never understood why. Well, apparently, like the Argento version of Dawn of the Dead was called Zombie in Europe. Yeah, and so this was Zombie 2, even though it's not even a correlation or a sequel. They just called it Zombie 2. I actually didn't know that. I was always confused. Like, if this is Zombie 2, like, where's the other movie? And that's why.
I used to wear that shirt all the time. Good thing no one ever called me out on it,
You
man.
wouldn't know how to explain it.
Freaking Mike McGarvey show up and ask me. I just called someone out on podcast. What's up?
He's probably listening, probably hated on us. So Mike McGarvey back in like when we were like I guess elementary school and stuff like that, he was a kid that would always try to like trick you into like saying you saw a horror movie when you didn't, and then he would completely call you out on it. And he was notorious for just making you feel like shit. So if you didn't know a fact about a movie, he would like rip you apart about it. Like you had to know every detail of the movie, or he'd be like, you didn't see it, or you're lying. Like he was a jerk.
Yeah, he was like an 11-year-old latchkey kid that obviously had cable, and we did not. So he'd be like, "Oh, you saw Friday the 13th?" Yeah, yeah, I saw it. He's like, "See when they killed that Falcon?" Yeah, man, that was crazy. He's like, they didn't kill Falcon. It's like, shit. Now the whole school's making fun of me because I didn't see it.
But he
They
would
call
get
you
you even
right
on things
out.
that you saw, like even if you saw the movie and like just didn't remember every minute detail of it, like because he did apparently, he would just like make it like you didn't see the movie, and like I'd say you were lying, and it's like no, I did see the movie, or like maybe you saw it on like regular public television where it's edited and like you miss certain things. I fucking hated that shit.
Look, I didn't know what a hater was when I was 11, but I did know what a hater was when I was
Yeah.
11.
So Mike McGarvey, if you're listening, like fuck you. So a couple other notes I have on this before we kind of like I guess wrap this one up. I thought these things were interesting. So originally they were gonna title this Dawn of the Living Dead because that makes sense. It was a Romero sequel.
Yeah.
But apparently what happened was so George Romero and John Russo were the writers of Night of the Living Dead, and they both decided to kind of like go in different directions and make other movies. So Romero did Dawn of the Living Dead, and then a couple of years later, John Russo did Return of the Living Dead. So he kind of kept that Living Dead thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then the other thing I had was in the original ending of the script, and I don't think they shot this, but this was in the script. So Peter, who I believe was the SWAT team member shoots himself, and Fran apparently commits suicide by sticking her head in the blades of the helicopter. Which to me, it feels like there's a better way to commit suicide, but that was how the original script ending was, and they just thought that was just too horrific, so they weren't gonna like do that. They're gonna make it happier, like a comic book ending. Luckily, though, we do see a zombie get its head chopped off by a helicopter. But yeah, I think I do need to rewatch this again on a different TV and just really think about when it was made, and maybe I'll appreciate it a little bit more because again, I'm watching it through 2024 eyes, and if I were to show this movie to someone for the first time, I don't think they would like it without having that nostalgia piece. Which, and again, I that's how I felt about it. And let's rate this movie, right? And I am going to give it a much lower rating than you, I believe. I'm going to give it a 2.5 bloody knives, and that's basically the main reason is because again, this was really influential. There is still a lot of violence and blood and stuff like that and gore, but ultimately like it just wasn't super entertaining for me, and I didn't overly enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's not a bad movie, absolutely not a bad movie. It's a good movie. It just wasn't a movie for me. So I'm giving it 2.5. So that's 2.5 seconds for you.
All right, I'm gonna take my sip now, and again, my ice melted, so this should be fun.
Same.
Mm. All right, well, I really enjoyed this movie. It's one of my favorite zombie films. Is it perfect? No, no, it's not perfect. Do I curse at the screen a little bit? Do I say this is fucking stupid? Of course I do. I'm not, oblivious to like, the faults in the film. There's a lot of like racial slurs and things like that would never cut it in today's, world. And, it has a lot of problems, but overall, I do find it entertaining. I thought at the time when I saw it, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm never going to forget that feeling because I didn't get it too many times in my life. So I'm going to give this 4 bloody
Ooh.
knives.
Damn, I was expecting that. Damn. All right, here we go. 4 seconds.
4, buddy. Drink it.
Mm. Nice and warm. All
All
right.
right. So since we're warmed up here, I got this little thing in my hand over here, and it is the
A little thing
George
in your
Romero.
hand. Little thing in your hand. I
It's,
don't know.
it's a George Romero challenge,
Oh,
and
okay.
and what it is it's some movies he directed, and it's not all the movies he directed. Obviously, most of them are horror films or horror adjacent. And what I'm going to do here is first, I'm going to ask you these questions,
Ooh.
and if you like the movie, we do nothing. If you don't like the movie, we both drink.
Oh, okay. It's
All
on
right,
me.
because I have the list, you don't. and then if you didn't see the movie, we both drink.
All right. I hope you're full because I probably have not seen a lot of these movies. Or if I haven't, it's been a long time.
There's a lot of movies on this list.
Oh shit. I didn't realize he did that many movies. Fuck.
About 10, I would say.
I probably have seen one of them. So and these are not the Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, or they are?
There are some here,
Okay.
yeah. So,
All right.
yeah, I feel like when I was making the list, I'm like, I've seen a few of these. So I think now is a good time, and it really set us up going into the next film because I'm gonna feel a lot different about these other films, just like you felt different about this
Yeah,
film.
I think
So
so.
I
Yeah.
think we're gonna diverge once again when we get to these other films. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
Do
it.
do
Good
you do
luck.
you have a glass there ready to go? Oh, you do. Okay, that's
I have
good.
a
All right,
glass. I
ready?
have a very warm, half-filled glass of bourbon.
All right, so this is not a spoiler because it's just really a thumbs up or thumbs down. So there's no, you don't have to give any details here. All right, Night of the Living Dead,
Thumbs up.
The Crazies,
I seen it so long ago. Drink. I don't remember it.
Zone of the Dead,
I'm even though I said I didn't care for the film, I am gonna give it a thumbs up.
thumbs up. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Okay, Creep Show.
He did Creepshow?
I
The
think he did
original?
some. Yeah, I think he did some of the.
You know what? I'm going to give it a thumbs up because I have positive feelings about some of the stories in that.
Okay. Day of the Dead.
Thumbs down.
All right, it's gonna go downhill.
Yeah, this could get bad.
Monkey Shines.
Thumbs down. I've actually seen it recently. Oh yeah, I got a drink too. I forgot.
Yeah,
Now we're at the point where I'm like starting to get really buzzed. I forget what we said 10 minutes
you
ago.
forget the rules of the game that I just gave. Like I gave the rules like 3 minutes ago. I looked at the clock.
I'll be honest, I
All right.
forgot we're even doing this podcast still. I'm like,
All right, we're just talking. All right, it's gonna get sketchy now. The dark half.
thumbs down. I do remember that movie. Did not like it. I'm also not a huge Stephen King fan.
Yeah. Land of the Dead.
So I haven't seen it in a long time, and I bet if I rewatched it now, I would not like it. However,
Mm.
I do remember liking it when I saw it, and it might be because I was a big Asia Argento fan, but I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I liked it too. So
I
I
like the
definitely.
concept of it, but
Mhm.
again, if I watch it now, maybe I wouldn't feel the same, but I do
It
remember
could have
liking it.
been Asia Argento. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Diary of the Dead.
I know I saw it. A lot of it, I think, is found footage, so I'm giving it a thumbs down. I think I actually saw it in the theater, believe it or not. I remember seeing it, and I remember like I remember not being overly pissed off that I saw it in the theater, and I might have been like the person I went with was really into it, but I'm just not a fan of anything that has a lot of found
It's
footage.
terrible. It was a terrible movie, and for obviously you guys can't see us, but Rich's glass was like pretty much half full, and now it's almost empty, and we still have one more movie to
Oh,
go.
good. Okay, cool.
Okay, it's
Whew.
Survival of the Dead.
Never seen it.
Yeah, me either. Mm.
And I'm gonna throw one more in there, and I
What?
saw it a long time ago and did not like it. Bruiser. Have you seen that?
No, I cut that out because I was like, no one saw this.
I did actually see because I remember renting that movie a long time ago, but I didn't like it.
You didn't like it.
Ugh. All right, so that's Dawn of the Dead. I'm gonna kind of take it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to Day of the Dead now because why not? I see you pouring. We just actually, for those of you who don't know, we just got ice. We took a little pause to get some ice, so hopefully this bourbon will go down a little smoother. So Day of the Dead is basically, I believe it takes place after Dawn of the Dead, and now life has pretty much been almost eradicated. The zombies have basically pretty much taken over. Day of the Dead focuses on a group of scientists and soldiers who have camped out in Florida, and they're just in survival. The scientists are doing some kinds of experiments kind of to understand the zombies, figure out if there's a way to stop them. Scientists, of course, are kind of doing some really wacky shit down there. And at some point, the soldiers realize that the scientists are doing experiments on other deceased soldiers, which they do not care for, and then all hell basically breaks loose. So I already said I gave this one a thumbs down, and I can get into that in a minute. But let's. What about you? Like I'm gonna guess and say you did not like this movie, but let me hear your thoughts.
So yeah, I didn't love it, and it's not at all what I remember. I don't know what how I romanticized this maybe in the past, but in my head, I thought these three films were almost on equal footing, and this was definitely one of the top ones. And from what I understand, this is the lowest grossing film out of the trilogy.
Not surprised.
And I'm not surprised at all because honestly, I think it really just kind of falls apart. I thought it was an interesting concept. I mean, they're in the information gathering phase of the epidemic here, and they're trying to either figure out how to survive with the zombies, to live with them, or to solve the issue. They don't really know like what to do, and so they are running these experiments. And while they're doing it, they are being protected by the military in this underground bunker. But obviously, they're all locked down there. Civilization is at like a bare minimum at this point, and tension is just like ratcheting up between these two groups. So to me, that was a great plot to make for an interesting story, but I just feel like it fell off a cliff after like 30 minutes. Like I enjoyed it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this film a lot. And then after 30 minutes, I'm like, what the hell happened? I remember becoming like very boring. And that guy John, who was one of the pilots, there's always a pilot in there. He gives that monologue,
Oh God,
um,
yeah.
basically about how he doesn't agree with like what they're doing there, and he doesn't really agree with the scientists. He doesn't really agree with like the military, and he's really just talking about like nothing with without adding any sort of solution or anything at all, or how he's trying to help. He's just being like kind of like a holier than thou kind of thing. Like, I'm just here, I'm getting paid to fly and do this. But it's like you're not really helping, dude. But that monologue just all of a sudden just I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I did some research because I want to find out how long the monologue was. And it was about 6 minutes. And I was shocked about the comments that I saw from this monologue. People love it.
Get out of here. I was
They
so
love it.
bored.
People are saying this guy should have received awards. People are saying that this was the best part of that film. And they're like, how come horror films don't get awards and things like that? I'm like, from that exact monologue, which I thought was the equivalent to like Pearl's
I was just gonna say,
monologue.
it reminds me
It
of that
was like
Pearl
it's
monologue
boring.
that
Yeah.
goes on for way too long and doesn't really cover anything that we didn't already know. Yeah, I was again after 2 minutes, I was like, is this guy really still talking? Like, this is a zombie like horror movie. Like, why are you still? Oh God, I did not realize it was that long, but I remember being so bored. And it happens at like the midway point in the movie, I believe, where
Yeah.
like it's already been boring for a while at this point, and then you
You
have
expect the
that.
turn. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, no, that was awful. So
I,
I will
I
say,
expected the turn immediately after that to like turn to some action, but it just kind of like went into like more monotonous, very 70s like film, even though this was in the 80s, where it's just a lot of nothing happens for a long time.
yeah, I would say in this movie, like again, the first maybe 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm into this. Like, this is really good. And I would say maybe the last 20 minutes, it kind of picks up a bit. But even by that point, I'm so checked out. Like so there's things I do like about it. Like I do like that very similar to Night of the Living Dead. You really not similar, but you feel the hopelessness. Like Night of the Living Dead, I think you're still trying to figure it out, and maybe there's hope, but you have no idea. Dawn of the Dead, you kind of feel that there's hope, that they're gonna survive this. This you're like, life is fucking over. Like this is it. Like if they don't figure this out, and they might be the last people on Earth for all we know. So like I think he even gives a stat where he says like the number of zombies versus number of people, and it's clear that most people are gone at this point. So I like that feeling of it, and especially like the opening scene. You see like again this woman sitting in this room looking at this calendar and this blank wall.
Mhm.
The jump scare was great with the hands
Yeah.
grabbing her.
Oh
Like that's
yeah.
still I knew it was gonna happen, and that still gets me. And then they show you like the streets of Florida, and like there's like an alligator on the steps of like the bank or something like that. And
Just
you just get the
chilling.
feeling there's like it's over for society, and like this might be it. And I really liked that. And I like the idea of again this like military that is completely broken down, and they're just kind of like all losing it at this point because no one knows what to do, and like they're kind of just staying here because it's their responsibility, but they're just looking for a reason to get the fuck out of there. And what drove me nuts about this, it's the lead actress, her character, she's so aggressive towards these soldiers and so angry. And it's like, do you realize that these are a bunch of men who are going to turn to animals at any moment? And like you're only surviving because they're protecting you, and you piss them off enough, like they're not going to protect you anymore. And it just seems so out of character for like, I mean, I'm sure people would be that way, but like know the room. Like she should have been very pleasant towards these people instead of like fighting them about everything. And I get like they're assholes for the most part because they are, but I was like scared for her. I was like, you're good. Bad things are going to happen to you if you don't shut the fuck up and stop battling them. So like I had a hard time with her character. But yeah, there is probably an hour in this movie where nothing happens, and it's just like the scientists, and I was so bored, and I really did want to like this movie because it's very different than Dawn of the Dead. I think the score I like a lot better. Like it's more intense to me. I liked the dread. I like when it does get to the violence, it's pretty effective and good. And like I think the acting was really good in this one for the most part. I don't agree that that monologue was anything special, but I think the other characters were really good. But yeah, it just kind of completely falls apart. Like, and I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. Like, I have no interest in this. There's just nothing really. There's nothing there for me to watch.
I mean, just watching them redundantly train that bub
Oh, so
zombie,
boring and
like
stupid. Why
what?
would you do
Like
that? Who
why?
cares?
Why are you like they showed it once? Okay, Showed it twice, showed it 3, showed it 5 times. Like, I'm sorry, like, Bub the zombie is not a character. I don't know why they were trying to make a zombie a character. It wasn't a good character. It was just a zombie making strange noises and yeah. Like, oh wow, this is what I'm watching. I'm like, how much could they possibly show us? Well, apparently nonstop because I
Yeah.
think it takes up like a half hour of the film. And going off of like what you said there, I think one of my first notes is I hate every one of these fucking characters.
Yeah.
And I hope the zombies tear them all apart within the first 15 minutes. But no, they just live and they get more annoying. And I mean, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? This is where we're at in society. This is we're at that point. We're at that boiling point where it's like we're holding on by like a thread, and this is the way we would act. You would get really, really annoyed at people. You would have a really sharp temper living in this underground bunker, and the only people you see are like these same 15 people every single day. And if you go outside, you could possibly get killed. And honestly, they had a very dangerous job when they were trying to corral those zombies every day for the test. I know, some soldiers, got killed from doing that, and it was a very dangerous job, and they were basically doing that so the scientists could do these tests. So there's clearly that animosity between like, the scientists and the military, because like, look, we're risking our lives for you. What the hell are you doing? And then that big slap in the face where they were, experimenting on the soldiers. And I think is what put them over the edge is, weren't they feeding the soldiers to the zombies? I think that, and that, I mean, to me, that was the one point in this film where I was like, man, that is fucked up. I'm like, how do you do that? You knew that person, that was Bill, man. I ate lunch with him like 3 days ago. How do you feed him to like to Bub to test like your theories?
And you
They
couldn't
were
find
definitely
other
doing some
meat? Like
shit.
that was like all you could find?
I think they had plenty of supplies. I think they shouldn't have did that. I think honestly, I think the scientists were just as big as assholes as the military people were.
I would say more, and I would say two things just for those of you who haven't seen this movie. So Bub is this zombie who the lead scientist is trying to teach to remember how to be human again, which to me is just such a silly concept. Like instead of trying to find like a cure or a way to stop the zombies, he's trying to make the zombies into humans, which is never going to fucking happen. And just seems silly. Like this is, and again, for all we know, like this scientist could have just been some crazy person. Like we don't really know like what actually was even really a science. Like we don't even really know. But one thing I will say, it's like even though the military people were terrible and the captain is the villain, he's the villain. But to be completely honest with you, and I'm not saying I agree with everything the captain did, if I'm him in this situation, I get why he's pissed off. Like here you are, like you're protecting these people who are giving you no results. They're giving you shit and lip. And like you're there just to protect them. You're probably not even getting paid anymore. Well, you're definitely not getting paid anymore because society's crumbled. So you're just following like your original orders instead of going to an island in Jamaica somewhere. So like I get why he was as angry and aggressive as he was, because he's just like, dude, do something, show me something. And then when he finally figures out what they're doing, I would have killed them too. I would have like slaughtered them all, like the scientists. I would have like been done with them. Like I would have like I even though I'm not saying he's a good person, I completely can relate. And it's hard to see like this person who's the villain, who I'm basically like, yeah, like show him results. Stop being, like do something. Like, you know what I mean? So like it was hard to like figure out who the villains actually were because yeah, I don't think the science like that one lead scientist, what he was doing, just wasting time. And again,
Guy,
if out
man.
of why would you feed the millet? Like they're gonna find out about that. Like, yeah,
They
like
had supply. It never looked like they were stressing about supplies or anything like that. It didn't seem like they were in like some sort of rationing phase or anything at all like that. So clearly they were well stocked. There was no reason. Honestly, I think he was a mad scientist, and he definitely didn't have like a PhD in zombies. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't even know what he was trying to do. I think he just got like these minimal results with this zombie, and I think he just liked that zombie for some reason, and it made him feel like he was doing something to help the world. And he was absolutely, the only thing he was doing is putting everyone in danger by having like these zombies 10 feet away from where all these people sleep. I mean, imagine that, like day and night, like you can't get away from these zombies. You're living underground. I mean, that's torture to begin with. And then you have these zombies that you're keeping 10 feet away from you. You're feeding them, you're talking to them like people. Yeah, that's going to piss a lot of people off. So, and not to mention, anytime they need a zombie, they sent the military to go get, another zombie for them. And that was really dangerous. So, yeah, I would say everyone was a villain, I guess, at that point in this film, but it didn't help. There was so many times in this film where I just like there was so many great pieces and I was waiting for it to come together and just be a better movie. And I'm like, oh, it's right now, it's gonna happen. This is gonna be good. And it just wasn't. I don't know what it was missing, but it I wouldn't say it wasn't interesting. It just wasn't good in my opinion. I just maybe the characters are too hateable, or maybe Bob was too annoying, or like they just had like maybe they just went over the top on too many of the characters, and that just makes you feel like ick when you're watching something. It's like, oh, I don't know, I don't know what this is. I don't like it. Like you can't explain it, you just don't like it. And I think that this is like for someone like myself, I feel like I can explain myself. I really don't know why. I just felt like I just don't like it. It just sucks. I guess that's where I land on it.
I think again, it is uncomfortable. The people you're supposed to feel sympathy for, you just don't because they're like making bad choices. And I think again, it was just really boring where there's just not a lot happening, and it was a very repetitive. And however long it was, it didn't need to be that long. I will say that I thought the zombie makeup I liked better than Dawn of the Dead. There were still some that were a little blue, but I think in general they looked more fucked up, and I thought that they did a good job with that.
But there was no
Uh,
zombie horde. There was
there's no
no
zombie
not to
horde.
the end. Like the
Yeah,
last like whatever 10 minutes. Like you really waited this whole film for it to get like just to hit that boiling point and just explode. And you're like, oh my God, I know the zombies are gonna get into this bunker and there's no place for these people to go. It's gonna be insane. It's gonna be a flat out shootout, crazy, survival, to death. And it didn't happen. Like the last, was it five? What do you think, it was 5 minutes that the
maybe.
zombie horde maybe.
Like I'll say for a movie that's about zombies and there are like a lot of zombie screen time, it didn't seem like there was a lot of zombies. Like it didn't seem like
Just
yeah,
Bub, which was
yeah,
very annoying,
yeah.
and that was like the most annoying zombie I could think of. It just wasn't there for me. I thought it was such like a cop out lame ending. It's like, what did they do? They fly to a deserted island. Wow, that's brilliant. It's
Yeah. Like why did they
like
do that to begin with?
like
Like why did we go through
stupidest,
all this
like,
shit?
yeah, it's like the stupidest thing I could think of. What are you guys gonna live on, like coconuts, and like, is
And
it
just assume there's no
sustainable?
zombies there, right? Like
I'm assuming they're I mean, who knows how at this point where it could probably transfer over through wildlife and situations like that. I don't think there's probably any place to go. A mosquito could bite a zombie and then it spreads it to a human, is what it kind of felt like was where they're at that point of that epidemic. And but that's so stupid though. It's like these three people decide they're just gonna live on an island now. I'm like, that's it's a cop out. It wasn't a good ending.
it was
I don't know.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you're supposed to really sympathize with the bub zombie. Like I think that was the point. And there's a scene in the end where like he's chasing the captain and he's like shooting him he's shooting at him, and you're supposed to be like, yeah, go get him, bub. But I'm like, this is dumb. Like I'm just like, I don't even care. Like is Bub's still a zombie? Like I don't care if he remembers that he used to be blah blah blah. He's a fucking zombie and he's gonna be a zombie. And I'm not like rooting for him to like kill the big bad. Like I just yeah, to me yeah, just I did not enjoy this movie. There was one note I on something I did like. Do you remember the scene where they kill the zombie with a shovel through the head?
Of
Like
course I
cuts
do.
the
Yeah,
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 like that
it's
was
awesome.
super cool. The
Yeah,
eyes are
that
still
was
moving and
that.
like
I mean, what was annoying is this had the biggest budget out of all the films, and I just don't know where it went. This had like quadruple
yeah, it was like
the
$7 million.
budget.
So here's the budgets for all of them because I looked this up. So Night of the Living Dead had the budget for Night of the Living Dead was 114,000, which would be equivalent to almost $1 million today. So like that's legit. Which like Night of the Living Dead cost $1 million. That seems insane to me, but whatever. It's a movie. Dawn of the Dead, the budget was actually $500,000, which I don't know. I guess if you extrapolate that to today, it's probably like 1.5 million, 2 million, something like that. And Day of the Dead was 7 million in 1986. And apparently, like he could have got 14 million, but they wanted him to cut out a lot of the violence, which there wasn't even that much. But he's like, I'd rather make the movie I want to make, and I'll do it for half. But $7 million, yeah, it's like for this, I mean, maybe the
It's like $20 million
locations,
now. I don't
yeah,
even
like
know.
it's crazy when you think about it. Like,
It was so isolated. It took place in basically two rooms. It was either like the cafeteria or like the bunks, and there was that one weird room where the pilots
yeah.
lived.
But one thing I will say though is that these movies were shot on film. They were shot in 35 millimeter, so like there's extra costs there, and I bet they had long shooting schedules. So like I'm sure this went like probably 2 months of shooting. So like it probably went on for a long time. So I could see where they spent money, but to me like this doesn't feel like a big budget, and I $7 million, maybe not big budget, but like it didn't feel like that if that kind of movie at all. Like so I don't, who knows where all the money went,
Is this
but
the shortest film out of all of them? I'm guessing it. I'm guessing it is.
it's shorter than, yeah. Actually, I think it is because I believe he had to cut down the script so much for some reason. Like I think the original script I read was like 200 pages, which is insane, and then he got it to like I don't know 80 pages or
But
something
it
like
doesn't
that.
feel that way, right? It felt long.
It felt
Like
long. It
it
felt too
felt
long.
long, and it didn't. I mean, so I did watch these out of order. I watched this one first. So maybe I watched this one because I think I was expecting like to come in with like a bang. I'm like, it's the freshest one. I know it has the biggest budget, so maybe it is the most exciting one. And just the name resonated with me all these years where I'm like, it's Day of the Dead. I'm like, this is a huge film. What a letdown it ended up being. And it was very shocking that I didn't enjoy it. It did not hold up, I think, like the other two did. If this is a trilogy, this is not a classic. To me, it doesn't compare. It doesn't have the same feeling, the same tone. It doesn't even have like any sort of social kind of like messaging like maybe like the other ones do. I feel like a lot of the points that made the other two like classics, I don't know if I'd call this one a classic. I'm sure someone would argue with me and this is someone's favorite movie, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I agree. And like thinking about like how I used to feel about these movies, I always did feel like this was my least favorite of the three and probably the
Mm.
one I watched the least. But so I watched these out of order too. I watched Dawn of the Dead, then I watched Day of the Dead. So after I watched Dawn of the Dead and didn't care for it, I was like, you know what? I'm actually excited for Day of the Dead because maybe this, at the point of in my life that I'm at now, maybe I'll appreciate Day because I remember it being more serious and cerebral from what I remember. And yeah, watching it now, I'm like, oh my God, like I definitely will not. I'm sure I probably will end up watching this again at some point. I'll forget and I'm like, yeah, was it that bad? And I'll probably watch it and be like, oh yeah, that was that bad. But yeah, this is definitely my least favorite of these three movies, and it doesn't feel. I guess it's tough to say like what fits in the trilogy because I think they're three very different films tonally. So other than calling them of the dead and the fact that they kind of take place in the same universe potentially, like I don't think they're very similar at all.
Not really
Um,
filmed like a trilogy would be filmed. I mean, there's at least 10 years between, each set of these. So,
which is
you know,
wild.
yeah, I mean, think about like, this guy, doing a film in 82 when he was making his first film in 68. It's even the same person, as a person or as a filmmaker, you change so much. And that's why I really thought that this would be like the crescendo of the trilogy and really just pop and be like, holy cow, what a way to end this. What a way to end this classic trilogy. And to me, it's very flat.
Yeah, no, I agree. So like I don't know what more to say about this movie other than
I
like
don't have
again,
anything to
we
say
didn't
about
like
this
it. So like what would you
piece
rate
of
it?
shit.
Zero to five.
Okay, so I mean, it's definitely not the worst film I've ever saw, and I liked it more than Hellraiser.
I still can't really give Hellraiser a one. You liked Dice
I,
better than Hellraiser.
I did, and
But
that's
you
a
know what though? Like here's the thing: when we're rating these movies, I definitely am going to rate movies according to their budget. So like I wouldn't compare Day of the Dead to Dice. They're different things. So like I might have given that, I don't remember what I gave that, but if I gave that like a 1 and Day of the Dead a 1, it doesn't mean that like they're the same movie. It just means that like I'm
Agreed.
judging it
Agreed. Well, I'm gonna give this the same exact rating as I gave Diced. So it's a
4?
2.
Oh,
It's a
2.
2.
For some reason I remember you liking Diced more. Okay, 2.
I did, but I was realistic, I
Okay.
think. Maybe I give Dice a 3. I don't know. One of our listeners is gonna call me out. If you guys want to email us, tell me I'm wrong.
You're more generous than me. I'm giving it a 1.5. So I'm gonna drink. Well, let's drink together, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna drink for the 2 seconds. You drink for your 1.5. Ready? Cheers.
Okay. You know what? It was worth watching it just for that sip. So.
I'll be honest. I love this whistle pig, man. Like I'm sad that I'm almost done with this bottle. All right, so
Definitely
let's
one
move on
worse.
to the original classic, the 1968 Night of the Living Dead. So I gave the plots in the last two. You want to provide us that one for those of, if you haven't seen this movie by at this point, like I don't know what to tell you, but
Listen, maybe they didn't. A lot of people aren't going to watch a black and white film, but what I'm saying is you should watch this, and it probably won't be like your favorite film. It is not action packed and doesn't have special effects, you know. So if you're a modern movie watcher, maybe you haven't seen it, but I say, you know, go back into the canon and check this out. So
yeah, just to jump in, like you, good point there, because you're right. There's a lot of like younger people who just haven't been exposed to this movie. I just assume that everybody's like been watching horror movies for 100 years, like we have, and I forget that there's a lot of new people who, like you said, if black and white 68, I'm never gonna watch this movie.
they're starting at Scream. They're starting at I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Or
They're not
even later, they're
starting. Yeah,
starting
they're
at
not.
Festival of Living Dead.
Yeah, they're not starting here. So
They're
I mean,
starting at
yeah,
Bodies, Bodies, Bodies,
yeah.
or
I
something.
I
So you're
say
right.
go back, check this out. You know, for a lot of people, this will be a long watch. This will be a hard watch because it's a lot of dialogue. But I say watch it just to understand, like really where a lot of these tropes came from, you know, in modern horror, because this really set it off. So to give the plot here, Barbara and Johnny are a brother and sister. They get a late start traveling to a rural cemetery in Pennsylvania to visit their father's grave. While they're there, they get attacked by some strange man in the cemetery, and Johnny dies, but Barbara escapes to like this very rural house. But she's being pursued by these attackers. She's pretty hysterical when she gets in a house, trying to figure out really what's going on there, because like there's like really no information at this point of what's going on. We know there's zombies. She does not know that there's zombies yet. So she's hysterical. Soon after, Ben, who is the co-star of the film, enters the house and basically tries to secure the house and cope with really what's going on around them. They find a radio and they learn that this is an epidemic that's affecting the United States, and there's really not a lot of places they could go. So they decide to hold up in this house for the night. After they barricade themselves there, they realize there's like a bunch of other people kind of hiding out in the basement. And immediately, you know, there's like a struggle for dominance and there's racial tensions erupt. And really, this group, they have to either figure out how to like, you know, band together and survive the night, or really look out for their own. And in this film they do a bit of both with mixed results, and that's really where we could take off from there, because sometimes they made right decisions, sometimes they made wrong decisions, and the effects of their choices definitely came back to haunt them in this film.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like again, the racial tension is something that comes up a lot when people talk about this movie, and really, it's again the main character Ben is black, and it's 1968, so there's a lot of stuff going on with civil rights, and this is I think this is right before Martin Luther King got assassinated, I believe. I think the story is after they wrapped this movie, Romero and someone else were driving to New York hoping to show this movie at any theater that would take it, and apparently on the drive up is when that actually happened. That's what I read, which is really interesting. But apparently, like again, that wasn't the intent, and they cast the actor who plays Ben just because he was the best for the role, and race never really factored into it. But when you watch it, it's very I definitely see that aspect of it, and that's just how it kind of just came together. And maybe as they were shooting it, like maybe they changed some things because of that. But yeah, that, apparently that wasn't really the intent to make this like social commentary movie, but it's clearly like it's there. Maybe that's just a product of the times they were living in, and just it just comes through in the art, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that machismo and dominance, and whether it's like race or like male dominance, a lot of those like themes are like overflowing in this film, and it doesn't make you like any of the characters personally, because they all are problematic, and you kind of, you're not really rooting for any of them in particular, but you're just wondering what they're going to do to get through this night.
So as I'm watching it too, like you always think about like what would I do in this situation? And you mentioned there's other people that are holed up in the basement, and one of them is this man Cooper, who's kind of, I guess, the villain of the film. He's kind of like the asshole of the film, and he's there with his wife and sick daughter, and he wants to kind of barricade up in the basement because he's like, there's one entrance, we could defend it. And Ben is like, no, let's stay up top because even though they could come in through any angle, at least we have options to run. What would you do? What do you think is the better plan?
What's the most ironic part about this film?
The most ironic part is if certain people would have stayed in the basement, they would
Yeah,
have been safe.
exactly. Exactly. So it turns out that they fought this entire night. People got shot, people got killed, people got beat up, people died. And even though we hated that character, no one liked Cooper. He was an asshole. He was at like his wife didn't even like him. He was an asshole. His kid probably didn't like him either. But the safest place to hide was actually the basement, because
But it wasn't safe for him because he ended up getting killed in the basement. But that's where, yeah.
yeah, for him.
But for others,
But for everyone else, if they just lock their ass in there, shut the door, and just stayed the night, I mean, he fell asleep and he ended up being safe. So what would I do? I would lock my ass in that basement, one way in, one way out, and defend that door. You have 5 6 people that could defend that door. Chances are that that's probably the best place, and you could always go back out that door.
Yeah, so like when I'm watching it, I'm personally thinking I would stay up top because at least I could retreat to the basement if needed. Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't.
Maybe,
But my
maybe.
assumption was I lock myself in the basement and then the top gets overrun and I can't get out. But it is one door. Yeah, so I go back and forth because I think in the moment I think I would have stayed up top, but you're right, the basement was the place to be because
They blew that whole entire thing, because like in the first shot, like when she's running around the side of the house, you actually see the exterior exit for the basement. So like you could actually get that there was two
Oh, was there?
exits.
I didn't notice
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's right on the side of the house. Is those big steel doors that are in the ground, like you go like this.
Yeah,
And
I didn't notice that.
yeah,
So there
no,
was another way
she's
out.
running on the side of the house, and you could totally see it. I don't know, like maybe it wasn't supposed to be in that aspect
Yeah,
ratio. And
I don't think that was supposed to be because the basement. Yeah, because the basement they actually shot in was not part of that house. It was actually like
oh,
another
okay.
another house or a set or something like that. So
I still would
that
have hid. I still would have
yeah.
hid in the basement. Personally, I think exhausting yourself trying to barricade all those windows and trying to protect all those entrances, I don't think it was the smartest thing to do. I think just take all your supplies and defend the door, and everyone could rest and relax. For me, that's the way to handle a zombie horde.
Yeah, no, that's probably like looking back since that is what ended up working, right? That's probably like the right way to do it.
When did he get killed? When he left?
Yeah,
It's like
you're right.
you should
He
just
should have
like
never
slept
left.
like
You're
you
right.
should just like like slept another hour, and he would have been fine. But that wouldn't have been the movie, I guess.
It's
But
kind of like we
yeah,
talked about this a few episodes ago where someone's like hiding in the closet
yeah,
and the killer walks by and then they leave the closet and then they get killed, whereas they should have just
killed. It's
stayed in the
like you
closet the
should have
whole
just
night.
stayed,
And
just
I think I
stay
even
there.
said like you just spend the night, like just do it. But yeah, like so I think you're right. It's funny, like putting it in perspective as to how it actually ends. Like, yeah, I would have made the wrong choice and I probably would have got killed.
So I was just thinking here, going back to like the beginning of this film with that first zombie that's in the cemetery. I don't know if you remember, but that was a very swift moving zombie. That was not like any of the others. If you remember, he got into the fight with Johnny, and if he got like knocked down, he would just pop right back up, and then he was chasing Barbara through like the woods, and then when she like hopped in the car and she was like rolling down the hill. He was like right behind her, and he basically hit the street like a few seconds later. And that kind of reminds me of, we were talking earlier on with that, with the fast zombies. And this might have been like the first glimpse of like a quicker moving zombie, because that first one definitely did not act like any of the others. And when she finally makes it to like that rural house, he's right behind her.
That's
So
true. He catches
I
up
mean,
quick. You're right.
she's jogging. She has, she's not a zombie, and he's like right behind her. So I thought that was, I don't know if it was just like a plot hole or a mistake, but that zombie was quite different than every other zombie from that film, where the entire trope of what a zombie is was invented, where they're slow moving and they can't climb things and you could just knock them over. And this zombie was not like that at all. So
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but you're right. And I do believe they filmed the cemetery scene last. That was the last part of the movie. So maybe it was just kind of a thing, or maybe this zombie was different. One thing that's interesting too, and it happens a little bit in the other two films, Dawn and Day, is the zombies use tools in this one, which I completely forgot. Like he uses a rock to smash the window. So they're still thinking. And there was the final scene of the movie where the daughter kills the mother, which is, I think, terrifying. Like the way they shot that, uses, I forget what, like
trowel.
a trowel, right, to kill her
Yeah.
mother. So like they're able to use, just think to use tools, which you don't see in a lot of zombie movies. Very rarely that I could think of where you would see that in a zombie movie. Usually they just tear you apart. They're not like using weapons, which I thought is interesting. And again, like he is kind of creating his own version of the zombie, which I think the fact is they don't even call it a zombie in the movie. They're called flesh eaters, I believe.
Let's talk about that girl. I mean, first time you saw that was terrifying. That little kid. You don't imagine the kid. And this is 1968, and honestly, we didn't watch it in 1968, but we didn't have a lot of experience with a ton of horror films by the time we watched this. And to see the kid pick up the trowel, and it's in black and white, and they're in the basement, and you know that the kid's gonna come back, and all of a sudden she gets up and she picks it up and she's moving real slow, and you're like, oh my god, is this kid the killer right now? And it was quite terrifying. And I remember being like a very young kid, and that scene stayed with me. Like that, to me, that was something that was frightening. And I can't name a lot of things that frightened me, and that was definitely one of them, where I'm just like, that's scary. Just the way it was shot. The kid was creepy as hell, even though you don't see her like the whole movie. When you do see her, like, kid's creepy, man.
Yeah, no, she was very scary. And have you seen this movie? I think they did a colorized version of it. Have you ever seen that? I never did. Does it? Do you
I
remember if it
did.
like was effective?
Yeah.
Because
I was
I'll
gonna
be
I was
honest.
gonna watch it for this one instead of the black and white, but I had the DVD and I felt like watching a DVD. So I did watch the black and white version, but I think on Tubi they have the color version. I don't think it was that much different. It might have lost some of that mystique in color. I think I watched it once or twice.
Yeah, because when you see the same movie in color versus black and white, it does play differently, I think, depending on the movie, right? But some things it just feels a little different, and not good or bad either way. Just it becomes a different movie somehow when you're looking at it through again,
I
color
think you
versus
don't
black and white.
see as much in black and white, so it's a little scarier because you can't see all the details, and you don't really know like what's like coming up or what's lurking. Like every time they showed like an outdoor scene, it was like pitch black, and if someone was wearing dark clothing, you really couldn't even see if they were like moving or anything like that. And then you add the color, and adds that contrast, so you can see. So I think it loses a little bit of that mystique when they do have the color, but obviously it's not something I preferred, because I've seen this movie probably 100 times, and maybe that one once or twice.
Yeah, and apparently, like it had trouble getting a distributor because it was black and white because they thought even in
What was common?
1968
What was common in
it was
68? I don't even
color,
know. Was
color.
it
Yeah,
color? Was
yeah,
it? Was it color?
yeah.
What is there? Did they choose black and white as a
I bet
artistic?
it was no, it was probably a budget. It was probably a budget thing, to be honest with you. I'm guessing because black and white film was a little cheaper than color film at the time, or probably always. But yeah, apparently, like a lot of studios. I think there was one studio that was interested, like a major that was interested, but were like, if it was color, we would take it. and they did end up finding distribution. And apparently, it's one of the most profitable independent movies ever made. So the stat I wrote, it was made for 114 grand, which is equivalent to $1 million today, but it grossed $30 million, which is equivalent to $250 million.
Damn.
So that's insane. So they did something right. Have you ever seen the remake that they did? I think with 1990 with
Yes,
Tony
yeah, I
Todd.
did. I did see that. I don't think I liked it. It
I
was
don't remember it. I think I saw it actually in the theaters. I think my stepdad actually took me to see it like when I was a teenager. And I don't remember it, but I know I've seen it. I would like to watch it again just to kind of like I'm sure it's very similar, but
I caught it, I think like 2 years ago around Halloween, probably in between like my challenge, and so I probably wasn't in the mood to like watch something like from the start. I think it was just on, so
yeah.
I was just staying in that mood. So I just like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this horror film. I don't think it was good. I just don't think it was good.
Yeah, I'll need to like again. I think they changed the ending, I believe. They got rid of the ending where the townsfolk kill the survivor. I think I might
The
be
most
wrong on
most
that, but
brutal part of the film.
yeah,
Of course, they would
exactly.
change
Yeah, the
that.
ending of Night of the Living Dead is
It's
fucking oh my god.
brutal,
It's like a gut punch.
but also kind of stupid though. Like honestly,
Is it though? Like I think they
no
would just kill anything
no
that moved.
no man, this guy survived the night. He knows the difference between the humans and he knows the difference between the zombies, and he woke up because he heard the dogs barking. He heard the guys talking. He heard the report that they were making their way towards that town, eradicating all the zombies. So he knew that they were armed. He knew all this stuff up ahead. When he comes out from that basement, wouldn't you just be like, help,
Yeah,
come
you're
over
right.
here,
Yeah,
help
you're
me
right.
out, man,
Yeah.
I need some help.
I'm human.
instead
I'm not a zombie.
instead what
Yeah.
I think doesn't he look through the sight of his gun? I think he lifts up his rifle. I think Ben does, and all of a sudden, boom, they tag him. I mean, he made so many mistakes. And again, I guess it just goes to show he was wrong. He did not know how to survive that night.
I mean, who
He
would,
made a
right?
lot, yeah, he made a lot of wrong decisions, even though he thought he was right. And like Cooper was like the asshole, but honestly, he said like, the way he was boarding up those windows was weak. It wasn't going to do anything.
And he's
They were
right, it
weak.
didn't.
They
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He says that the basement was the safest place. It was the safest place, So this guy didn't know shit, but they were just trying to like that big dick energy there, and everybody just trying to put yours out kind of thing. And everyone was like not really making any sense, just wanted to be right. Everyone just wanted to be right in that film.
Which
And
is how it would be, right?
yeah, it would be. I mean, you had like Barbara, who was her character went to shit after her brother got killed. I mean, she was an absolutely useless character. Like she was actually just too annoying to even appreciate as a character, with her just kind of whimpering the whole time and not being able to talk and not making any sort of sense. Like that got annoying. Like you could do that for like a few minutes, but like when you're an hour into the movie and just like that character didn't break yet, it's just like the same thing. Like, oh, I don't know where I am. It's like it just was really like, I'm like, all right, I hate this character now,
Yeah, and
and
apparently she was written to be more alpha. And I believe when they saw the actress, she played the terrified, panicky, or just stressed, like PTSD destroyed person really well. So they went with that. But apparently she was supposed to be more like of a hero in the movie, and they changed it when they cast her. Yeah, that's what I read. Which again, I agree with you. Like I like that in the beginning she's like shell shocked for a while, but it does become like problematic to me where it's just like, okay, you got to get with it at some point because like shit's going down and like I can't have you here. Like you're gonna bring us all down unless you get your shit together. So like, but maybe that's look again, that could be a common reaction for people. They just shut down. But watching it in a movie, it's
it
not
could be, but it
entertaining.
was an annoying character trait.
Completely
Yeah,
agree.
so
Completely agree.
it made you not really care for the character. What I really thought is again another another mistake from Ben, who was supposed to be the hero. That truck and gas refill plan, that was a shit show. That was so stupid. Like, man, you guys really fucked that up.
Like, how
You
did that
got
even happen? Like, that
like
drives me insane.
because you had three idiots basically that didn't know what the hell they were doing. It seemed like a very simple plan. It's like, I don't know how, I can't even imagine how they screwed that up, but they really screwed that up, and two people died, and it's like Ben's just like, yep, that
But
didn't
you don't
work
feel
out.
bad, right? Because you're just like,
I,
you're an
I didn't
idiot for
feel
making
bad
this
because they were
decision.
stupid. They were stupid, but I mean, who was I mad at? I think I was mad at the girl, maybe because
Oh yeah, it's her fault. If she just would have stayed put,
she
that wouldn't
ruined the
have happened.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, she was scared, and her boyfriend is outside, and she's with these strangers. So it's like I was conflicted about who I was like blaming for that whole situation. But yeah, honestly, I'm kind of blaming Ben because it was his shitty plan. I just feel
Yeah.
like I
They
feel
all
like
fucked
they
up.
could, yeah, I feel like they could have did that a lot better. It's like anyone could have like pumped that gas. She could have drove. I mean, they could have did a lot of things better, but I don't know. I found that funny. I was like, how'd you guys screw that up? And also, if the
And they
truck
would have got away
started,
with it. It would have worked. That plan would have worked.
they could have just drove though. I mean, if the truck started, they could have just drove. I mean, where were they trying to get to? A couple miles? They could have drove. It's like, you guys just get in the car. But I guess, you always think these things. You always get mad, but it just wouldn't be the movie. So are you mad at the writer, or are you mad at the plot, or like what are you mad at? Or
Yeah, I
like
think it's just like you said, that people were idiots. Because even watching when they're throwing the Molotov cocktails, you're like, that's way too
you're like,
close.
like,
Like maybe
dude,
throw it
man,
somewhere else. Like
like a foot
yeah,
to the left.
yeah.
It's like,
I
yeah.
was like, oh my God, like this. Even if I'd never seen the movie before, like watching it for the first time, you're just like, this is not going to end well. Like you're fucking this one up. And it was a good plan. The plan could have worked.
I think we're doing it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, maybe a couple bourbons, and then we would
100% would have worked.
have.
I'd be like, I got this idea, man.
I'm gonna drive this truck on the lawn.
Good try his truck right on the lawn, dude. But we need gas. It's like, no would have made a lot of sense. Just sending someone out to the gas pump with a jug and filling it up and then pouring it. I mean, I don't know. That's just, I mean, that's drunk me coming up with a better plan than they came up with. But that's probably what I would have did. I'm like, yeah, I got this bucket here. Let's just pour that in and drive away. Let's just do it.
And at that point, like there were a bunch of zombies, but there weren't like 50. There might have been like 10 to 15. Like I feel like you could have kept them away with like a torch or something like that instead of like while that was going on. Like I don't think or you could have shot them. I don't think you needed to like have fire everywhere around the gas. Like you could have there was another way to do it basically. But look, again, they're panicking, they're just trying to get through this. Like you're not thinking straight. They're all arguing like throughout the entire movie. So like the fact that they actually even executed on the plan, I think is.
I mean, I just would have lit my fire pit and just sat
And then
behind
what?
that, you go grab the gas,
I'm just
and
gonna
it's like,
sit right here.
that's it. I feel like there was a better plan, but it was funny. Yeah, I guess they were panicking. And to me, that was just, I don't know, that was a little bit silly. And I thought that their explanation for the event was just really, really ridiculous. And you mentioned it too with the Soska sisters plot of their film, where it was just some sort of like Venus satellite radiation that's what caused this whole event. And I mean, that's kind of weak. Like what happened? A Venus satellite had radiation on it and it caused this.
Yeah, it would have been
Like,
better if they didn't explain it at all. It's just this just happened because whenever like I forgot, to be honest with you, I forgot the reason for why and again they never actually say that's what happened, but that's what they articulate might happen. And I forgot, and then I remember watching it and being like, "What? Venus? Like, what are you talking about?" Like, just I think just have it we don't even know what happened. And
like
and I
maybe
think
in
in the other
1968 that's terrifying, but I'm like, that would not cause a zombie apocalypse.
yeah, and
Like,
that's and I like in Dawn and Day they don't really go into the origin. It's just you're just here like
you just
this.
here, you're part of it.
And I think it would have been a better choice to not have that. But again, 1968, they're I'm sure and sci-fi was really big in 1968 too. So they had their reasons for it. So another interesting thing about this movie is all the music I believe is public domain. So it's just stuff they found. I think they still spent like a good amount of money on the music, which I don't really understand. But yeah, I think it's a lot of public domain that was in like other films that they just kind of pieced together.
That is an interesting tidbit there. I did not know that.
Yeah. Which again, I don't really notice the music as much. It just feels like an old movie. It's just like the music you would hear in an old horror movie, basically, is what I felt. Not like where the score is very deliberate in Dawn and Day, where you really notice it.
So this film is public domain, right?
Yeah. So what ended up happening, and was the original title was Night of the Flesh Eaters, and they realized there was another film called The Flesh Eaters, so they changed it to Night of the Living Dead. But when they changed it, they forgot to update the copyright notice on the actual film. And because of that, because there was no copyright notice listed, it fell into the public domain immediately. And it has always been in the public domain, which is why you could find a million different DVD versions of this movie, and like some are better quality than others. But basically, I believe anyone can put out a DVD of Night of the Living Dead. It's like completely public domain. So
So let's remaster this thing from 4K. Let's do it, man.
yeah,
let's
I'm
give it.
sure.
Let's give it.
I
Let's give
know
it a better
many people
ending.
have done that. Yeah, it's changed the ending, right? Yeah, and I believe you can remake the movie too. I think I might be wrong on this, but I want to say Day of the Dead is also public domain. I might be wrong on that, but I
Yeah, I don't
believe that
want
is.
that.
I don't either. Yeah, fuck it. That's why I
That's
know
all
it's
yours, man.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, this is public domain because they just fucked up. They forgot to change something, which is wild to me. And because of that, even though it made a ton of money, it would have made a lot more if and also another thing is while this movie made a ton of money, apparently Romero, the director, did not make anything at all because he wasn't really didn't really understand contracts with distributors, or maybe he just didn't care. But apparently, the studios made a shit ton, and he made very little. Which it ended up working out for him in the end because he just made other movies, and I'm sure he made his money through other things. But yeah, he didn't get a big cut of that. What equivalent to $250 million? He got very little of that.
My God. Well, he's a legend, and we appreciate him. And he made some huge classics that, I mean, changed my life. So I'm gonna be honest with you. Both these films were life changers for me. It's scary. It's a scary film, and I think even today. I just watched it like last week. It holds up, man.
I
I think
agree.
it holds up. It's a creepy film, and it sneaks up on you, and there's a lot of dread, and there's violence even though they don't show it, and it's scary. I mean, they invent the jump scare? I don't know, but when the hands like burst through the walls, you weren't expecting that. You'd scream. If you know
And it's funny you say that, like you watch it now and you're like, okay, it's not violent, it's not gory. But at the time, it actually was one of the first movies to really depict like violent murders on screen. And it was also, I wrote this part of the same note. It was also one of the first films to have a black person as a main character, which is interesting. But yeah, so at the time, 1968, this was actually incredibly violent and gory for the time, and a lot of people were turned off by it. While it was popular, a lot of people were turned off by it because it was so violent and graphic, and it was difficult to show it in places. Which again, we watch it now and it's tame compared to
Yeah,
everything
it's
else.
tame.
But at the time, this was new. People weren't really doing this, which is why maybe the black and white makes it easier to digest when there's that much violence. It just seems different. Like even Kill Bill, right? Like there's that scene where she's like slaughtering all those people and they switch to black and white basically to avoid an X rating. They're like, well, it's black and white, like they're not going to think it's as violent as it is, which is just an interesting choice. But yeah, so
But I mean, imagine watching this 1969 in a drive-in movie theater. It's pitch black. There's a 100-foot screen in front of you. The only thing you hear is like the scratchy sound of the dialogue and the music. I mean, that'd be terrifying. You have no idea that like any of these scares are about to happen. You're a 16-year-old girl. That's terrifying. This movie would have been terrifying to anyone who watched it back then. Now, before you even see a film, so much about it, every detail, all the scary parts. I mean, everything is analyzed like we're doing right now to extreme
yeah.
detail, and there's really nothing that's missed. But back then, like, there was just probably like an advertisement for it in like the local newspaper, and you just saw the name of it and you kind of went in going blind. And I would say this would be extremely terrifying.
At the time when this movie came out, there weren't ratings, so it wasn't like this was R rated, PG-13
So
rated.
what's
So
PG?
it was nothing. It was not rated. So like there were kids that would go see this without realizing what it was because there was no rating system. So like
So I could go back to that store I used to work at and say that this is a PG movie.
it's G. Technically, it's
It's
G,
G.
G-rated.
I'm like, it's
G rated.
whatever I think it is. And you said I could play. So I want my job back.
If only that store didn't close, you could go back.
Yes, it did close. And I think I ended up dating the girl that took my place anyway in electronics. So it kind of worked out for me. It's all right.
Yeah. So anyway, so again, classic. I get why it's a classic. It does still hold up. If you could get past, again, black and white, something that's a little more talky, I think it's worth checking out just to see something completely different and something that again is every zombie movie that came afterwards would probably say this is an influence. So let's get to the ratings. Let's wrap this up. So what would you rate it? 0 to 5, Bloody Knives.
Wow. I need a second. You go first here.
Okay, I've been going back and forth on this based on what the movie actually is and what it stands for versus my enjoyment of the movie. And I do really like this movie. I do watch it often. I am going to give it a 3. And that's based on it's not something that's like one of my favorite movies. I do really love the movie. I think it's not like I wouldn't put it like my top 20, for example. So I'm going to give it a 3.
I agree with that 100%. I'm giving it a 3 as well.
All right. So let's drink together then. Let's do it again.
All right.
And this will finish off my glass. So perfect
oh my
timing.
God. Here we go.
Cheers.
Oh man.
So I might have done that in less than 3 seconds, but it was definitely a 3-second sip because I totally just
I was
drowned that.
I was tossed between 3.5. You made some good points. That's what I needed to kind of put me over the edge. It's a 3. A 3.5 is something that I'm going to crave to watch every few months, a few times a year. This is not that. This is something anytime it's on. If I walked into someone's house and they were playing this, I'd be psyched. If I walked into like a movie theater and this was on, I'd be psyched. But I'm not gonna like look for it and put it on every single month. So
yeah, always happy to watch it, but it's out of all the movies that I like are in my collection, it's gonna be lower as to one I actually picked to watch. Although again, if it's on, yeah, I'm very happy and was it out of all the 3, I was excited to watch this one the most. So yeah, I love the movie, great movie. All right, cool. All right, so the next episode we're gonna do is going to be we're going to finally do our Amityville horror episode, which I know you're super stoked about. I am less stoked about it, but that means I'm probably going to end up drinking a lot, so it's going to be fun. So we will catch you all next time. Sorry.
I definitely have some stuff planned for that, it should definitely make for an interesting night. So yeah, definitely tune in for that. And if you guys like what you hear, man, just pass this around. Tell people about us. We'll just keep talking to each other, but we're hoping you're listening, and we're hoping that you guys like it. So definitely give us a shout if you can.
Yeah, I'm watching this I'm sorry, watching this. I'm doing this podcast regardless.
We're watching each other, so
yeah,
we see each other.
I got nothing else to do, man. Like it's Monday night. I need a reason to drink.
Maybe one day we'll release the video recordings. I don't know if I think we'll go to jail if anyone sees that one with Anthony.
Yeah, that was bad news. All right, good night, everyone. Later.